Welcome to Big Daddy Bakes. I'm Big Daddy, and today we're going to be making butter bread. Butter bread is a soft white bread that has a lot of butter combined in it. It's not a brioche. We don't do it that way. But it's a really tasty bread, and you're really going to enjoy making this. And also, I'd like to welcome you to Season 2. This season, I'm in a new kitchen, and I have a whole bunch of new things to share with you. We're going to start out with bread today, but later in this season, we're going to do a lot of baking of other things, such as cakes and pastries. So I can't wait to do those. So let's get to it, and I'll show you how to do it. For this recipe, you'll need a cup of warm water and a cup of milk, and these are heated to 105 to 110 degrees, 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, 1/3 cup of honey, 1 egg, 2 teaspoons of salt, 7 to 7.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You can use bread flour, but I find it's a better texture when I use the all-purpose in this particular recipe. You'll also need 2 extra tablespoons of butter, so that makes a whole stick in total that we'll use at the end of the recipe. To make this recipe, in the stand mixer that I have here, I'm going to add the milk and water, the yeast, and some sugar, and I am going to whisk that together pretty good. And I'm going to wait for about 5 to 10 minutes to see if the yeast has been activated. And you know it's activated when you see it frothy on the top. So I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, and you can see that this is all bubbly. Now, I did this with instant yeast. Generally, you don't have to with instant yeast, but I didn't know how good this particular package of yeast was, so I just wanted to make sure it was working. So, when in doubt, always test. If not, you don't have to. You could skip this and just put everything in the bowl at the same time. But I just like to be careful. All right. And to this mixture, we're going to add the egg, the honey, and my honey has started to crystallize a little bit. If you run into that, you can also put it in the microwave for just a couple minutes, and it will do. Of course, not in the middle thing like I have here. And I'm going to break all that up. Alright, that's all good. And now I'm going to add the flour to this. And I'm going to retain about 1/2 cup in the bowl. And I am going to add this. Notice I did not put the salt in yet. I'm going to wait for just a minute to put the salt in. I'm going to let that come together just a little bit here. And now I'm going to start, I'm just going to put the butter in and let it kind of mix in. just going to do it until the butter kind of all comes together and everything's good. And I'm going to turn off the mixer, and we're going to let this sit for about 20 minutes. And when the 20 minutes is up, then I will add the salt and we'll continue kneading. So I will be back in 20 minutes. Alright, so this is sat for 20 minutes. I'm going to add in the salt, and we're going to turn on the machine, and we're going to let this run until we get a nice soft dough. This is going to take about anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to knead. And as soon as it gets a little bit more mixed in, I'm going to turn it up, and I'm going to put it on like number 2 or number 3. Okay, so it took just about 10 minutes for the dough to become a nice soft loaf. So what I'm doing is I'm going to knead this just a couple more times by hand. And then once I've done that, I'm going to kind of pull it back on itself a couple times. Let it create a nice ball. And I am going to put it into a bowl right here. I'm going to spray it with some spray. I'll put my dough down in here, kind of push it in. It's going to end up over the top. That's kind of what I want. So I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap and put a towel over it and put it into a warm place. Now, if you don't have a really good warm place, what you can do is turn your stove on early in this process to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you can let it warm up for just a little bit until it is nice and toasty warm on the inside. Turn it off and let it kind of sit there while you're doing the kneading and all of this other stuff. By the time you get ready, your dough will be ready to go into the oven, and it will have a nice place to rise. And if you have a regular bulb in the oven, all you got to do is turn on the light to keep it warm. So I'm going to put this in a warm place, and I'm going to let it rise for about an hour. So it had been about an hour, and as you can see, the dough is doubled from what I put in there, so it's ready to be shaped. So I'm going to turn it out, and I'm going to cut it in half. And I'll shape the first one. This makes 2 good-sized loaves of bread. And I've got my pans already sprayed here, but I just want to measure and make sure that I'm getting them about what I want them to be width-wise. These are 8x4 pans. The reason I'm using 8x4 is I want a really tall loaf. So I'm going to, after I patted it out, I'm going to roll it up. And I'm going to pinch that closed, and I'm going to do a little tidying. You want it to be nice and even across, and I'm going to put that in my pan. So that's what it looks like in the pan. So I don't want that seam on the top. So there we go. That looks a little better. Alright, so now I'm going to do the other one. And I'll do exactly the same thing. Just going to judge how big my pan is here. And I'm just going to slowly roll this up. I'm going to pinch those seams closed, and I'm going to put that one in the pan. I'm going to cover these with some cling film, and I'm going to let them rise in a warm place until they're about 2 inches over the top of these pans. It will expand this way, and then it's going to expand up. And that should take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour for the second proofing. Right, and I will be back as soon as the rising is done. Okay, so our bread has come out of the oven. See how nice the loaves are. I'm going to paint them with this butter that I reserved. While they're still in the pan. I'm going to leave them in the pan for just a few minutes, and then I'll take them out. This butter will just add a softness to the crust, and it will also give it a little bit more butter flavor. And you can skip this step, but I wouldn't. It's kind of really important for the bread, I think. Alright. So I'm going to let this cool for just a minute, and then I'll take the loaves out and show you what they look like. Alright, so here's our bread after it came out of the oven. You can see it's really tall, beautiful loaves. The flavor is really wonderful on this bread. Let it cool for at least an hour. If you cut it early, it won't hurt it as much as you think, but it does mess with the texture. I would let it cool completely because it's still doing a little internal baking, even though it's done. I tested mine when it came out. It's 190 degrees is what it should be. So at this point, I'm going to let it cool, and then I'll see you back in just a moment. Thank you so much for watching Big Daddy Bakes. If you like what we do here on the channel, please like and subscribe, and please also share with a friend. Thank you so much.